Hello and welcome to the TMWC Activity Professional Academy. My name is Tim Anderson. I'm a consultant here in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. Today's topic for the activities tip of the month is tracking participation in assisted living programs. So I decided to do this particular topic this month because it's kind of a question as to what kind of documentation is really required in assisted living for activities professionals. And truth be told, every state is different because assisted living is not federally regulated at this point, at least at the time this video is made. It is actually state regulated. And in my own state, Rhode Island, the only records we're required to keep at least as of this video being made, is a record of the activity calendar that you create for every single month, the record of the programs that you actually did, as well as the resident association meeting minutes. Yes, we do typically in assisted living do a getting to know you form, and a lot of us also track participation anyway because it's helpful for us, and we'll go into why later. But for the most part, tracking participation is just not required in assisted living for activities directors, at least not in Rhode Island. Your state might be different if you're watching this from somewhere else. So I thought what I would do today is kind of explain why participation records are important in assisted living, and also show some samples of some of the documentation that I created in assisted living when I worked there. A little bit of background on me. So I actually started in adult daycare, where there was a little bit more documentation required. Again, that was a state level as well. But where I worked, there was more documentation required. And so when I moved to assisted living, or when I started working in assisted living, I was kind of shocked at how little documentation was really required. So if it's not required, why do it? So I have a couple of answers to that. And the first answer is that in assisted living, one of the main things we were concerned about and that we are concerned about is self-isolation. It looks at how much people are really coming out of their rooms, and if there's somebody that isn't coming out of their rooms, how do we make sure that that person is just choosing not to come out, and rather than them actually choosing to self-isolate, or them or them potentially having a depression. The second reason is there are a lot of new residents moving into assisted living now, and many of them, at least where I used to work, many of them had dementia of some type. And the more I worked in assisted living, and we saw that happen, became even more important to really keep an eye on people, and people who had cognitive impairments, such as dementia, and to see if there was a point where a person comes in and they come to everything, and then they suddenly start forgetting to come to things, and they need reminders, and then after a while they may not be able to remember to come to activities, and we could call them to remind them, but then they won't remember after we called them, so we might have to start providing an escort for them, and so forth. So that was another reason that participation records were very helpful, because they can show you if a person is starting to decline. So what types of documentation should we track? Mainly participation, as I've been saying all along so far, is participation. The second thing you want to track is the number of people who are coming to each activity, particularly the activities that you're paying for. If you have a budget and you are paying instructors like art therapists, music therapists, entertainers, lecturers, and so forth, and if you're paying those people, you want to have an idea of how many residents that group is serving, so that you know whether or not to continue to put money in that direction or to move it somewhere else. And the other thing that you might want to track is the number of people that you're visiting every week. So let's say somebody comes into the assisted living community and they decide they really don't want to be involved in group activities, and that's their choice. However, it might be good for us to keep an eye on them by just going in and visiting them every now and then, bringing them a cup of coffee, or just going in and having a conversation with them. Something of that nature can be really helpful, just to help the person feel still like they're getting engaged from the community. Now, they can also refuse that if they don't want those visits, in which case you just document that that's what they chose to do. So I put together a couple of printables, and these printables are free. They're available on my website in my resource page. The link is below. Feel free to go on, print them out, adjust them, create them in whatever way you want. They're here as a sample. They're there as just a way for you to learn, a way for you to get some ideas for your own thing. So I'm going to tell you that these forms are a combination of what I used to do in assisted living and what I wish I had done. Because as I continued to learn and I started really thinking about all these things, since I've focused on being a full-time consultant now, that it gave me a chance to really think about what worked and what didn't and what might work better. So I have a couple of options. So the first one looks like this. Ta-da! So the first one looks like this, and so I would include the resident's name and whether or not they needed they were completely independent to when coming to activities, whether they needed a phone call or whether they needed an escort. And then below here was anything they were particularly interested in. It's a nice little reminder, especially if I have a new staff member and I wanted to teach them what certain residents liked. And I would just reprint this for the most time each month, just keep this part blank. And then you just write in new stuff, or I would adjust it in the next month or so. And then what you do is underneath here, you put in the month and then the activities that they came to that month and then the dates that they attended those activities. And what's nice about this is that you can see if the person's participation is increasing or decreasing. You can also see if there are people who are not coming to anything, which is also really good to know, because those are the people that you might want to be visiting or you might want to be checking in. Maybe there's a program that they want that you're not offering, and then maybe you can start offering them. So I took the liberty of actually filling out this form, and I made a little adjustment because I had another idea and thought that this might be kind of a neat other way to write it. So this one I actually included the resident's room number, so that way if you are calling the resident, you know which room to call. And then this one underneath here, and by the way, this is not a real resident. This is a completely made up person. So this, you would write in the activities that they enjoyed, and then this is for if they have any special needs that you might need to attend to. So this would be like, do they need a phone call? Do they need an escort, so forth? Or is there just something you just want to, note about them that maybe not so obvious? And then here, as you can see, I've written in the activities, including skydiving, and then over here, the actual activities that they've attended. So, and the dates that they attended. So that's one of them. And then the other form I created, and there's a blank form of this as well, so you'll get a chance to see that. This one actually tracks weekly attendance. And so what's nice about doing it this way is that actually, in this case, you're not tracking the specific activities, you're just tracking whether or not they're coming to something during that day of the week. And what's really good is that you can schedule some time, maybe on Thursday or Friday or even Saturday, for a staff member to kind of go through this list and say, hey, who haven't we seen this week at all? Should we be going to visit them, and so forth. So, and if you're going to do this, the best way to probably do it is to fill it out daily, so that you can see if there's a trend. If somebody's not come to anything for a couple of days, hey, we should check in with them, or hey, we should call them, see if they're interested in coming to something. So their names are over here, again, completely fake residents. And then over here are the days of the week. I just did Monday through Friday, but many programs in assisted living are 7 days a week in terms of the programming that we run. So you can add columns if you want. And then over here is if they didn't attend something during the week, and we're concerned, did we visit them a couple of times? Were they out with the family, or were they hospitalized for a couple of days, or did we go and visit them and have coffee with them one of those days? So that's the other type of form that you can create. So those are some of the systems that I've created to track attendance in activities in assisted living. Whatever way that you track it, just make sure that you're tracking what you need to know, and what is going to help you provide the best possible program for your residents. If you have any comments or suggestions about documentation that you use in your assisted living, please feel free to put them in the comment box below, and I'll see you next time. Have a great rest of your month, and since it's just about May, happy Cinco de Mayo and happy May Day.